So move on over, Trot Along. Look, it's been a heck of a run. Not only did you bring us Minnow riding a goat, but you've served us Dorinthea players very well since the Hunted as a slightly worse, but just as functional, hit and run. But your replacement, at least in the non-budget formats, is here. For us Dawnblade players, Beat of the Ironsong is a massive, massive pickup. Modal, flexible, and scalable. And hey, at worst, it's just a bad glint. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to the channel, and happy not only Flesh and Blood Friday, but Super Slam Release Weekend Friday. And, normally we'd maybe talking about other things, but I don't care. I'm so excited about this card coming out. I'd be able to get my hands on it this weekend, or at least through trades and stuff. But this card is a massive, massive, massive pickup for, let's be honest, Dorinthea Dawnblade players like this guy. Okay, you see Glint right there. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Beat of the Ironsong. Okay. 0 cost, blue, defends 3, warrior attack reaction. Everything you just said there is awesome. Okay. But the modality here is the true win. So X +1, meaning you'll always get at least one mode, where X is the number of +1 counters on your attacking Dawnblade. You can either give your Dawnblade attack +1, give your Dawnblade attack go again. Cards defending the Dawnblade attack can't gain defense, so basically a shred, but like maybe better than a shred, opposite snag, whatever you want to call it. Really, really, really good. In the right case, obviously. And then damage that target Dawnblade attack would deal cannot be prevented. Now, certain we don't have Enigma and stuff around anymore, but also very, very, very good in the correct situation. So, as I mentioned, at worst, this card is a bad glint, right? Because it can give you the go again. It's a blue, 0 blue, 3 attack reaction that can give you go again. Okay, now, I was talking about Trot Along, which was not a reaction, but functionally we're using it to give go again on the front side, a front pump go again, if you want to call it that. And I don't see how this isn't just a windmill slam trade-in for Trot Along. Many of us were playing Trot Along for the fact that it was a bad hit and run. That seems like the one to just swap out and go for me. But like I said, at worst, this is a glint with no reprise. And obviously, there's better than that. But the fact that you have this and Glint together, and the fact that your opponent really has, it's just more decision trees for your opponent. That's the thing I like most about Warriors is putting your opponent in a tough decision situation, sometimes an impossible decision situation. The fact that you have this and Glint in the deck together, I think is also from like a equivalent opportunity cost. Maybe it's opportunity cost for your opponent. It's probably the right statement there. This is really, really, really strong, just from that perspective. On the flip side, I already talked about Trot, but we picked up Trot Along and Nip at the Heels both in the Hunted. Now, these were huge pickups for us because we got, as I mentioned on Trot Along, we got, strictly worse hit and run. But when you're running hit and run blue, that's generally what you're using it for anyway. A lot of us were playing precision press, and that wasn't super good in the situation. So Trot went pretty much in many cases for precision press. This seems to go in better as a reaction. Plus it gets around some of the you can't block with actions type of thing, or you limit on how many actions you can do, overpower and all that, right? So this seems also it gets around some Marlin things, and it's just better. Okay, well, unless you're getting battering bolted, to be fair, throwing it out there, but the other alternative here you have is it can just be a Nip the Heels. Now, I do not think that you're going to swap this in for Nip at the Heels and play Trot. I think you want to play Nip. Or I think you want to sub it out. Again, if you are playing both, which I am right now. I don't want to go there, but it should go in over for Trot over Nip if you're playing both, is my opinion, because I think you want the +1. Nip at the Heels basically did the swap in for Ironsong Response Blue because it was always on. Didn't require a card from hand, right? If they did Arsenal or something like that, right? So this is that. You also then, on the next two modes, which let's be clear here, The next two modes are not always usable, which is kind of one of the cool things about this card is, you know, whenever you look at like a modal card where you can choose all of the options on something, a lot of the value, sometimes a lot of the value on that is built into having them. And in this case, you get fine value out of this card having 0, meaning you get to choose one mode. And if you have one counter on, you basically can do whatever you want to do in most cases, right? So this is not something that like you need 2 or 3 counters on your Dawnblade to make effective. It's pretty much good out of the gate. And if you're able to get a counter on, you're in like cash money territory. So we go into right, Jagged and Core, right? So Chorus of Ironsong came out in Dusk Till Dawn. It saw some play, not a bunch. Obviously, Jagged was our saving grace during the Enigma days. And by the time it came out, she was basically gone. That's not entirely true, but functionally, we didn't get a lot of use out of Jagged Edge, right? But now, if you were playing those cards already, you can just take them out of your sideboard. To be fair, Jagged Edge as a 1/3 is not all that bad, right? But I think there's better ones you can play if you want to just run this and clear up sideboard space. So that's an option. Chorus, I think, is pretty much out. But then you also get to the defense thing, which is very interesting. I don't know how often that's going to come up. But again, if if you're coming in with something and you react over top and then they're like, haha, staunch response or something to that effect, that's really good. We are also in an age where we have, like, think about it, like you have embodiment of Earth tokens all over the place with Florian making 2 of them. Like Florian off, he'll push his armor, his chest piece forward, right? Make 2 of them and then defend. And he's like, haha, now I'm defending 7, right? That's, yeah. So 2, 1, 2, and then 3, 2, maybe 3. So defending 6 to 7. Well, now he's not anymore, right? And again, you don't need to swing for the fence on this. You just need to hit, right? With the Dawnblade, so you can keep going and apply the additional pressure. And that's all you need is that 1 or 2, right? The +1 on the nip at the heels effect, the -1 or 2 on the shred effect, get you where you need to be, right? That's pretty awesome. Then obviously on the prevent thing, you get that not as relevant again without Enigma being here. But again, really, really, really cool. Prism is a thing, right? Her heralds are a thing, right? Can be. Okay. Her angels are a thing, I should say, not her heralds. Heralds are always a thing. Her angels are a thing, okay? So I think we've pretty much gone through the tough decisions, the counters math. Now, the sideboard consolidation here is pretty big if we go in and we think about what we were previously... I'm not saying everybody was running them, and I actually, in many cases, it wasn't enough to do that and be full on Arcane. But if you assume that you're running, let's say, 2 Jagged Edges, right, to do that, plus you might be running a little heavier on certain reactions in like the, 2 Jaggeds, maybe heavier on certain reactions, that's about 5 slots that you were running from a sideboard contingency to deal with maybe Guardians or something like that. This card gives you all of that back. Maybe not all of it. You may choose, depending on the meta, to run more of something. I completely grant that. But at a basic level of like coming in raw against the field, this card alone, again, being just ever so slightly worse than Glint and even adding value being in the deck with Glint, also frees you up sideboard space. And I think that's actually probably the best part about this card, is it serves in some cases slightly less efficient, but again, there's a lot of value that comes with modality and saving that sideboard space. So the build slot freedom that it is bringing us, that this card brings us, is pretty big, right? It even lets us perhaps run things like run through, right? Because you free up the sideboard space, you can run a run through, which can be very effective versus Gravy, right? You go ally and then you come with a +2 on the back, right? That's a really, really good card. But in very specific matchups, because again, if Dawnblade doesn't hit, then it doesn't matter, right? Typically something like a run through, right? Think Blade Runner, obviously with 2-handed, but you generally don't want to run that in somebody who's not going, because it doesn't help you on the first one, and then it gives you nothing, right? But when you know you're going into allies, run through becomes very, very, very good. So it gives you a little, again, it's a tech slot of sorts, but that still seems really, really, really good to me. So, like, ultimately, this card at its worst is still good, right? At its worst, it's still doing what you need it to do. It's maybe not as compared to, let's say this, as compared to any individual piece that we've mentioned today, it's not strictly better. But when you consider that it's slightly worse than all of them individually, but combined, it's like our powers combined Captain Planet, right? Our powers combined Dawnblade. I think this is freaking awesome. I know this is freaking awesome. And I'm pretty sure that everybody's on board with this. So I'm really excited to see the doors that I don't know what it does in our current meta, to be fair. We'll have to see where things go. But again, you've got toughness tokens out there. You've got guardians out there. I think there's a lot of ways that this card can do exactly what we need it to do. So super exciting. Would love to hear your thoughts. I think it's definitely a 3 of. Hopefully it's not going to end up being like $30 card. We will see. We will see what I can trade for this weekend. And by the way, have a great time this weekend, right? We saw all the stuff from the world premiere weekend. Looks to be a crazy set, as you would expect from a set called Super Slam. So let me know what you're thinking. Nothing else, folks. Happy release weekend. Or pre-release weekend, excuse me. And go Commando.